I'm Geof, and I'm an alcoholic. I say that right off the bat because it's such an important part of my story. I grew up in a little town outside of Buffalo, New York. My family wasn't a wealthy family, 8 kids to feed, all in Catholic school at one time or another. It was a pretty tough financial experience for my family. My parents were great Catholics. We went to Mass as a family every Sunday. The other side of that is all through Catholic school, I believed in God, but faith was a different issue. I didn't have good faith. And things went well up until I was 18 years old. I was out of high school and the Vietnam War was just beginning, and I decided to join the Air Force. But it took me away from my active participation in religion. I really regret that, but it just kind of evaporated. I didn't make a decision about it. It just didn't seem convenient. I left the service in 1968. I got married a couple of years later. I was really too young. It was the first woman I'd ever been serious about, and eventually we got a divorce. And time goes on, and I finished college and I went to work for a public accounting firm in California. And so it was a very exciting time, and I was exposed to some very exciting people. I met another woman, and we got married. I'm actually living in sin at this point. And as people would line up to receive, I would just sit there. Did I miss it? Was I embarrassed? Was I ashamed? Yeah, all those things. I progressed in my career. I got involved in starting a couple of companies that both became hugely successful. With that became a very large lifestyle. It's sort of a dark period because I was completely away from the faith, and I just really drifted. I retired very early. I retired when I was 50. I had everything that I needed, but not everything that I wanted, of course. And so in retirement, I really lost myself. My identity kind of evaporated, and I started to drink. And the drinking became a huge problem. Over 10 years, relationships suffered, I suffered, and it was really the darkest period of my life. My kids were upset with me, my wife was upset with me, I treated friends poorly, I was not a good dad, I was not a good husband, I was not a good friend. And one Sunday afternoon, as I was about to open my nightly bottle of wine, I had this urge to do something about it. It was almost like God tapped me on the shoulder. And I picked up the phone and called Betty Ford and reserved a bed. And a week later, I arrived at Betty Ford. I spent 5 months there working on the root causes of my drinking and what to do about it. This was a huge intervention for me. I spent my time there. I was very active in AA while I was there. And so I look at it today, and it's like God got me to AA, and then AA got me back to God. In AA, my faith started to grow. I often talked about the role that Christ had played in my becoming sober. That this is not something I could do on my own, that I needed help from God. That was very difficult for me because I had believed that I was in charge of my life. In talking with my parish priest, he raised the possibility that my first marriage might have a basis for annulment because I was very young, my wife was very young, and it's possible that I didn't really consent to it. It took about 3 years, lots of interviews, a tribunal, the whole works, and ultimately it was decided that that marriage could be annulled. And so my wife and I got married in the Catholic Church, so that was a huge thing for us. I started to go back to church. I went to confession, and I started to receive the Eucharist. And the joy in that was huge. I now believe fully that receiving the Eucharist is receiving the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus Christ. And it's changed me profoundly. My faith is much deeper than it has ever been. From my early childhood with my family and my parents, through my career, you know, there was always a plan. And I just didn't see it at the time. But I see it clearly now, and I'm so grateful for that.